When I lost my job, the hidden truth the camera captured left me heartbroken. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The fluorescent lights buzzed an eerie tune above me, casting long shadows in the silence of the office. My heart raced. It was late afternoon when I received the call. My hands trembled as I pressed the phone to my ear, the voice on the other end cold and devoid of empathy. "We're letting you go." Just words, but they felt like a guillotine's blade, slicing through my reality that I looked around. My coworkers glanced at me, some whispering behind their hands. I could feel their eyes examining, judging. Even Tina, my closest friend, failed to meet my gaze. Did they see my pain? Did they understand the crushing weight of those 3 little words? I blinked back tears, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. As I walked out, my footsteps echoed down the empty hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter at lunch breaks, the warm coffee at 3 p.m., and the triumphant emails that once signified victories. Now, they felt like ghosts, haunting the spaces I left behind. Outside, the wind gnawed at my skin, biting reminders of an uncertain future, but it wasn't just my job I was losing. I could almost hear the faint whispers of my dreams drifting away too. Would I still be able to pay rent? What would my mother say? She always believed I was destined for success, but now, I was just another statistic. I looked at my Finino voicemails, no texts. My world had shrunk to a pinhole view of despair. Then, as I walked to my car, I noticed a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye. On the edge of the parking lot, hidden by the shadow of an old oak tree, stood an unfamiliar figure. The light glinted off something in their hand. A device? A camera? Everything in me screamed to approach them. Questions bubbled up. Who were they? Why were they watching? Suddenly, the figure dropped their arm, and I froze. The camera pointed directly at me. My heart raced. What truth were they capturing? My sorrow? My fear? Or something darker? 1,000 thoughts whirled in my head. I was vulnerable, exposed, and then, just as quickly as they had appeared, they were gone, vanishing behind the oak tree, leaving me in a haze of confusion and dread. My chest tightened. Was it coincidence? Or a sign of something more sinister lurking in the shadows? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next morning, I awoke with a sense of dread gripping my chest like a vice. My tiny apartment, once a sanctuary filled with dreams, now felt like a cage. The walls closed in on me, and the whispers of self-doubt clawed at my mind. Had I truly lost everything? As I swung my legs out of bed, I could hear the silence pressing in, heavy and suffocating. I dragged myself to the kitchen, pouring a cup of coffee, hoping the bitter liquid would somehow clear the fog in my brain. My eyes caught the reflection of the empty living room in the window, and a pang of sadness struck. No one would be celebrating my small victories anymore, no one to share a moment with, only echoes of laughter that faded faster than a song on the radio. As I sipped slowly, my phone buzzed on the table. My heart leaped at the thought of a potential opportunity or a message of support, but instead, it was just a notification, a sad reminder that I was now alone on my social media platforms, viewing my friends' flourishing lives from behind a glass wall. Their streamlined successes danced in front of me, a stark contrast to my own current chaos. I felt the weight of resentment and envy pool in my gut. Just as despair threatened to swallow me whole, there was a knock on the door. My heart raced anew, but it was only Ms. Ortega, my elderly neighbor. She peered in, her silver hair glistening in the dim light. "I baked some cookies," Thought you might like some, she said, a warm smile spreading across her wrinkled face. Thanks, Ms. Ortega, I said, trying to muster up a smile in return, though it felt awkward on my lips. Her kindness was a small beam of light breaking through the clouds, but the shadow of my situation still loomed over me. I took the plate from her, the sweet scent enveloping me, momentarily easing the tension in my chest. They smell amazing, I muttered, almost as if I was trying to convince myself it was true. She seemed to notice my lackluster tone. Remember, dear, it's okay to feel lost sometimes. But don't forget to reach for the light, even if it's just little moments. You'll find your way. With that, she turned, shuffling back to her apartment, leaving me standing in the doorway, her words like wisps of hope lingering in the air. That I sank onto the couch, cookie in hand, but my mind drifted back to the figure I had seen the day before. What had they captured? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something pivotal about that moment, a hidden truth hovering just out of reach. I pulled my laptop into my lap and began searching for any news about surveillance or strange sightings in my neighborhood, wondering if I was simply overreacting or if it was a sign that my world had become more complicated than I'd thought. Time slipped away as I combed through articles, my heart racing every time I caught sight of an unfamiliar face in a grainy photograph. Then, a notification chimed from a news site, another layoff announcement from my former company. This was hardly a surprise, but the implications pressed down hard on my chest. I quickly read the comments, half expecting to see my own confrontation with their cold, soulless decisions echoed by others. There it was, a familiar name, Janelle, my former colleague. She had written a detailed response about the unfair practices in their restructuring, calling it out for what it truly was. My heart swelled with admiration for her bravery but plummeted at the same time. I was grappling with feeling powerless while she stood tall in indignation. The last time I saw her, she had assured me we'd find our footing together. Now, she was facing the same storm with a boldness I envied. Just as I contemplated reaching out to her, a notification popped up on my screen. A video had been posted, capturing the events of the day at the office. My pulse quickened. Curiosity and dread warred within me. If it showed the raw moments of loss, I wasn't sure I could bear it. But I clicked play, the screen lighting up with faces I knew, and there it was, the figure with the camera, positioned strategically, capturing me at my lowest point. Why? I whispered, staring, feeling exposed again, but this time on a public platform. The impact was even more pronounced. It was a damning portrayal of vulnerability, and though I was not one to seek fame, I couldn't ignore the potential implications. Suddenly, a notification popped up. I know you. Reach out to me. I have something to share. The message lingered, mysterious and chilling. Who was this person lurking in the shadows of my life? What did they want? My heart raced as the world spun around me, the thin line between hope and fear fraying into a tangle of confusion. Was the truth about to unravel, or was this just another twist in the unfolding chaos of my life? The jarring notification hung in the air, a weight that pressed against my chest as I stared blankly at the screen. I know you. Reach out to me. I have something to share. Thoughts spiraled in my mind like an unwelcome storm. Who was this person and why would they take an interest in me? Was it the same figure I had seen just the day before, lurking in the periphery of my life, creating ripples in the water that I could no longer ignore? I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising tide of anxiety, but hesitation knotted my stomach, holding me captive. Was this a real opportunity to discover something more about that moment, a chance to reclaim some of the power I felt I had lost? But would it only lead to further shame or disappointment? After what felt like an eternity, I summoned up the courage to respond. My fingers danced over the keyboard, hesitating, before finally typing, "Who are you?" I hit send before I could overthink it, my heart racing as I stared at the blinking cursor, waiting for a reply. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Meet me at the park on Maple Street at 3 p.m. today. You'll want to hear this. The message sent a shiver down my spine, both thrilling and terrifying me. The park was barely more than a few blocks away, but every step toward it felt like a leap into the unknown. With the hours dragging painfully, I found myself pacing my apartment, going over the last few encounters I'd had, the camera, the desolate moments at work, Janelle's brave declaration. A small flicker of hope sputtered within me. Perhaps this could lead to something meaningful. I thought of Ms. Ortega's words, reaching for the light, a small, delicate beacon guiding me forward. At precisely 3 p.m., I stepped out, the sun fighting to break through the clouds, casting playful shadows on the ground. As I approached the park, I could feel the anticipation thrumming in my blood. I spotted a bench near the fountain, grandiose in its beauty, but haunted by the browning leaves that clung pathetically to its edges. In an almost ritualistic way, I settled there, heart pounding, breathless with each passing second. The minutes dragged, each tick of my watch echoing loudly in the quiet of the park. Just as I was about to lose hope, I noticed a figure approaching, a familiar face from the corner of my memory. It was Julian, another colleague, one I'd shared moments of laughter with over coffee breaks. Our eyes met, the surprise clear in his expression. "Hey, I got the message too," he said, glancing around nervously. "I think it's about what happened at work. We all went through some heavy stuff, and people are talking. I thought if we could find out who's been filming, we might make sense of it." His words sent a mix of relief and confusion rushing through my veins. Julian, too, had been deeply affected. I had been so isolated in my fears that I hadn't realized how many of us were still tangled in the aftermath, grasping for clarity. There was comfort in knowing I wasn't alone, but the realization that others had followed this same thread of chaos gnawed at me. Before I could respond, Julian pulled out his phone, revealing clips he had gathered from the video that circulated online, snippets where Janelle had spoken out, and others that detailed the broader implications of our former company's practices. "My theory is there is something bigger at play here. The layoffs were one thing, but there's an angle no one's seen clearly yet. And I think it could connect to something even deeper." His words pulled me further into the longing for answers, igniting an urgency I hadn't felt in weeks. "Do you think that someone has been exploiting us?" I asked, a sense of dread creeping back into my mind. "That I don't know," he admitted, sorrow etched across his features. "But if someone is using our vulnerabilities to manipulate or profit from our misfortunes, we need to find out who. It's not just about us anymore." The air thickened with tension as we exchanged heated theories. Each possibility served as a double-edged sword. We had only torn away a superficial layer of our shared ordeal. Yet I could sense the impending darkness. Would digging deeper only lead us further down a rabbit hole of despair, or would we find the light that Ms. Ortega spoke of, some semblance of truth and justice? Just then, my phone buzzed with a new notification. I took a deep breath, hoping for a moment it was a sign of hope, but as I opened it, a chill cascaded over me. The message was brief yet terrifying: "You're getting too close. Back off now, or you'll regret it." The threat hung ominously. In that instant, the park, still bathed in sunlight, dimmed around me. A dawning realization washed over, and the pain of uncertainty settled deeper into my bones. I wasn't just battling my fears and insecurities anymore. I was about to plunge headfirst into something much more treacherous. The weight of the unknown loomed larger than ever, and I knew we were not only seeking answers, we were standing on the precipice of danger. With Julian beside me, the question loomed, unyielding and fierce: were we willing to risk everything to uncover the hidden truth? The park had transformed into a sanctuary of shadows and whispers. I could still hear the rhythm of children laughing and dogs barking in the distance, but it felt as though an invisible barrier separated us from those innocent joys. My pulse quickened, panic clawing at the edges of my thoughts. Someone was watching and warning not just me, but possibly Julian too. I locked eyes with him, seeking reassurance in the familiarity of his presence. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt surreal that only moments ago we were united by the comfort of shared experiences, and now we were facing an unseen adversary that sent shivers down my spine. "That we can't back off," Julian replied, his voice steadier than I felt inside. "We owed it to ourselves and to them, the ones still suffering in silence. We have to find out who's behind this, who's been filming us." He paused, his brow furrowing as he considered the implications of what lay ahead. "But we also need to be smart about this. If someone is threatening us, we shouldn't go in unprepared. The pulse of hope made a quiet comeback, igniting the flame of my determination. I agree. But how? We can't just march into this blind. As if on cue, a woman nearby began to gather her belongings: her chair, a tattered book, and a small notebook. She looked back briefly and nodded at us, the kind of nod that seemed to say, "I see you. You're not alone." It sparked a memory of Ms. Ortega's parting words about kindness in unexpected places. Perhaps there were others, like her, who carried small truths in their hearts. They could be allies in this fight. "Look," Julian interrupted my musings, "do you still have that contact at HR? Maybe she'll know more about who might want to silence us or expose the truth." I nodded, recalling the faint glimmer of a lead from earlier conversations. "Evelyn. She's been distant," but I hesitated, fear creeping back. "I don't know if she'll want to get involved." Even as I said it, a nagging thought bubbled to the surface, a fleeting notion that Evelyn, despite her reservations, shared a truth heavier than any fear. Maybe we weren't the only ones forced to conceal pain under polite facades. Julian studied my expression before speaking slowly, carefully. "If we don't ask, we'll never find out. She might surprise us, we could be each other's lifelines." Just then, my phone buzzed yet again, an urgency behind it I couldn't shake off. I opened it, half expecting another threat, but instead, it was a new message from Evelyn herself: "I need to speak to you. Come to my office tomorrow at noon." Hope and dread coiled within me like a snake ready to strike. "It's Evelyn," I told Julian, my voice trembling with a mix of hope and uncertainty. "She wants to meet." Before Julian could respond, a sudden commotion drew our attention. A group of youth ran past us, laughter in the air, one of them tossing something toward our direction. A small crumpled paper landed near my feet, bright against the muted earth. I bent down, picking it up, unfolding it with a sense of trepidation. It was a flyer, an invitation to a truth rally happening in just a few days, organized by people advocating for transparency in corporate ethics and workers' rights. My heart raced as I read it, the words igniting embers of resistance that began to burn stronger than fear. Maybe this was the kind of gathering we needed to amplify our voices, a chance to connect with others and fortify our resolve. "Julian, look at this," I urged, holding it out for him. His eyes lit up with recognition, and I could see him mentally connecting the dots. This could be where we find others who've been affected. We could get more information, connect with the right people. He nodded vigorously. The flicker of hope had transformed into a blazing fire. "We need to go. We can gather strength in numbers." As dusk settled around us, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I felt the ripples start to spread. Our journey was just beginning, and though shadows still lurked in the corners of my mind, small moments of connection were lighting the way. But just as we began to formulate a plan, I received another notification from the mysterious number. It was simple and foreboding: "You don't have to go. Things could get messy. You've been warned." The chill that ran through me was unlike anything before. This was no longer just about answers, we were dealing with a web that intertwined our personal struggles with a corporate nightmare. As Julian and I exchanged cautious glances, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping deeper into the dark, and there was no way to turn back now. Each choice we made could lead us further into danger, yet I realized hope was a dangerous weapon of its own. It could be our salvation or our undoing, and as I looked at Julian, I knew we had to decide whether we were brave enough to harness it. The next morning came draped in an eerie stillness, the kind where the air felt heavy with unspoken words and concealed intentions. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring out the window at a world that felt brighter than the turmoil churning within me. Sunlight filtered through the branches of the tree outside, dancing like laughter amidst the shadows of doubt. Today would be pivotal. Today, I would face Evelyn and hopefully uncover the truth hidden beneath the surface. That I could still feel the weight of the warning from the mysterious number echoing in my mind, each word laced with foreboding as though it were a shackle binding my spirit. But I couldn't let fear decide for me. I took a deep breath, my resolve sharpening. Each moment of tenderness I glimpsed a child playing in the park, a smile exchanged with a stranger bolstered my courage. There was strength in community, in the shared truths that connected us, and I couldn't keep silent any longer. As I prepared for the meeting, Julian sent encouraging texts, reminding me of the people who relied on the courage of others to unveil their own hidden truths. "Remember, you're not alone. We'll fight this together," he wrote, and I could almost feel his steady presence beside me. I held on to those words, drawing strength from them like water from a well. When I arrived at the office, my heart raced. The walls were adorned with bland corporate artwork, yet they felt alive with whispers of hidden stories that lingered just out of reach. I approached Evelyn's office, where trembling fingers rapped on her door, creating a sound that felt both bold and fragile. "Come in," she called softly, her voice barely rising above the hum of the fluorescent lights. Inside, she looked more human than the corporate facade I had grown to see, a woman with her own burdens, struggling to keep them hidden behind polite smiles. Her brows furrowed with concern as I walked in. "Thank you for coming," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "I know it's a lot to ask. I've been hearing things, and I thought it best we talked in person." Her acknowledgement of a shared struggle brought waves of relief. "I need to know what you know," I said, my voice steadying as I leaned into the conversation. Evelyn took a deep breath, the weight of her own struggles palpable in the air. "I've been trying to gather information, but I found deadlines pushing me into shadows. Someone has been monitoring our discussions about potential transparency initiatives." Her voice trailed off, the shivers of fear breaking through. "There are whispers of layoffs, worse yet. There's a leak. Someone has been targeting people who are trying to stand up for their rights." That I felt my heart clench, fear mingling with anger. "And you think we're next?" "I fear that anyone rallying for change could become a target. Those behind the surveillance want to silence dissent. The cameras are focused on us, not because we're guilty but because they want a reason to intimidate," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. My hands trembled as I thought of the risks we had to take. "Evelyn, we need to do something. We can't let them control us through fear." Suddenly, her gaze dropped to the desk, and I noticed a single tear glisten in the corner of her eye. "I've been silenced for too long," she admitted, voice cracking. "I've seen corruption, and every time I choose comfort over truth, it eats away at me." Hope flared again within me, igniting an unexpected alliance. But as I opened my mouth to speak, a buzzing in my pocket drew my attention. A message from Julian: "Meet me at the coffee shop." "I'm worried." Evelyn noticed my sudden demeanor shift and asked, "Is everything okay?" "No," I admitted, a knot forming in my throat. "Something feels wrong. I need to go meet Julian. But before I do, please let me know what else I can do to help you." As our eyes locked, the depth of shared understanding moved like an invisible thread between us. "We can strategize together," she offered, her determination rekindling. "But be careful. They know who to watch." I nodded, clutching the flyer for the Truth Rally in my hands, feeling its paper edges biting into my skin. "I won't let this go in vain. Thank you for trusting me." Stepping out of her office, though hope was growing, I also felt the tendrils of panic tighten their grip around me. I rushed to the coffee shop, my mind racing with the possibilities of what Julian had uncovered. But just outside the door, my breath caught as I spotted him standing there, eyes wide with an incomprehensible mix of urgency and fear. "Julian. What's wrong?" I asked, but the look on his face left me breathless. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me closer. "Someone's been following you," he said urgently. "I saw a car parked outside your building last night. I wasn't sure at first, but now I know they're watching us." The sharp realization of danger pierced through me like ice, awakening a chilling dread that settled heavily in my stomach. "What do we do?" Before Julian could answer, his phone buzzed, illuminating the screen where a familiar number flashed ominously once more. "You're treading on dangerous ground. Walk away while you still can." My heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at us both. Doubts bloomed like weeds in a garden we had fought hard to cultivate. The stakes had escalated, and the shadows grew darker around us, threatening to swallow the light of hope we had begun to nurture. "Julian," I whispered, my voice trembling, "are we too far gone? Is there still a way back?" As his eyes met mine, the weight of our decision dawned on us. Whatever lay ahead, it was clear we were each other's only haven amidst the chaos. In that moment, as the sirens of uncertainty wailed louder in the distance, hope and fear intertwined, forming an unbreaking chain that bound us to an uncertain destiny. The coffee shop buzzed with life, but it felt impossibly distant, a mere backdrop to the reality pressing down on me. I could hear the clattering of cups and faint chatter of customers, yet the world around us twisted into blurred shapes, leaving only Julian's eyes, wide and earnest, anchored in my view. "Why don't we go inside?" he urged, pulling me gently toward the entrance. I was detached from my surroundings, my thoughts racing with the implications of his warning. Someone was watching us, watching me. As he guided me to a secluded corner table, the gravity of our situation began to settle like a weight on my chest. I could still feel the pulse of fear throbbing through my veins as I lowered myself into the chair across from him. "What else do you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Julian leaned closer, the shadows of worry darkening his features. "I overheard some colleagues talking. There's talk of interviews, investigations. They're covering their tracks, but the whispers are growing louder. It's only a matter of time before they make a move." "Why now?" I questioned, the disbelief manifesting as a furrow in my brows. "Why go after us now? We're just trying to bring light to what's happening." That he sighed, a long, heavy breath framed by uncertainty. "Because change is scary. And it seems our attempts to expose the truth are disrupting something they're desperate to keep hidden. People have lost their jobs under worse circumstances. Some are never seen again." Our eyes locked, and I felt a tsunami of emotions crashing over me: fear, anger, sadness. What do we do? If we're being watched, it's like we're being suffocated. Just as Julian opened his mouth to respond, the cafe door swung open, sending a gust of autumn air swirling inside. At that moment, my gaze fell upon a woman entering the shop, a stranger with striking features and an air of determination. My heart skipped a beat as a strange sense of familiarity enveloped me. "Jules," she called out, her voice cutting through the din of the cafe. I watched as she approached our table, eyes fixed on Julian before they flickered to me, filled with intensity. "Who's this?" I asked, uncertainty lacing my tone. "This is Lena," Julian introduced her, his face softening slightly. "She's from the support group," she finished for him, her gaze piercing through the air between us. "I heard you might need help." A flicker of hope ignited within me, displacing the thick worry wrapping around my heart. "Help? How do you know what we're dealing with?" Lena hesitated for a moment, then settled into her seat, the tension of the situation breaking slightly. "I know how terrifying it can be to speak out. I was in the same position not long ago. They tried to silence me too." Her voice, steady and unwavering, carried the reassurance of shared struggle. Julian shifted in his seat, curiosity mixing with caution. "What do you mean?" Lena leaned in closer, her voice lowered. "There's more to this than meets the eye. I've been gathering information about the operations from the inside. It's deeper, darker. There's a network of people trying to expose the truth, but we need to be smart about it." Doubt crept back into my consciousness. "And how do we know we can trust you?" "I've lost everything," she whispered, emotion breaking through the veneer of her calm. "My job, my security, my entire life. I don't want you to lose the chance to fight back. They keep massaging the narrative, but the truth is right under their noses. It's always easiest to silence the loudest voices." Her words dripped with sincerity, and something deep within me stirred to life. I remembered Evelyn's determination. Perhaps our fears could be transformed into strength. "What can we do?" I found myself asking, hope seeping into my tone. Lena offered a small smile, revealing the flicker of resilience that burned behind her weary eyes. "There's an old footage archive. It contains evidence of past illegal layoffs, corporate misconduct. If we expose it, it could turn the tide. But we need to be careful, very careful." My heart raced at the prospect, yet doubt lingered like a shadow. What if they find out we're even looking for it? "It's a risk. Every step forward is a risk," Julian added, reaching for my hand, an anchor in the storm. "But if we stay silent, well, lose everything anyway. As the weight of our decision settled heavily in the air, an unexpected warmth spread through the table. Lena's presence, though new, felt like an extension of the fight we were already in, the aching, unwavering battle for truth and justice. But before I could respond, a sudden commotion erupted at the entrance. My heart sank as I spotted a familiar face, the boss from my company, flanked by stern-looking associates, scanning the room. Panic seized me as I realized how close danger truly was. "Get down!" Julian hissed, slipping beneath the table, and I followed instinctively, our breaths intertwined under our makeshift cover. My pulse pounded in my ears as I strained to listen, trying to decipher their intent. "Let's go," the boss said, his voice slicing through the tension. "We need to end this before it gets out of hand." The reality of the moment washed over me, and I clutched Julian's hand tightly, uncertainty crashing around us like waves. We were treading a path rife with peril, and yet a flame of determination smoldered within. But as I sat there, the weight of our choices wrapping around us like a vice, I could almost see the future unfurling, dark yet glimmering with the hope of revelation. In this war against silence, every heartbeat echoed with the promise that we would not back down. It felt like fighting the tide with only hope as our armor. Suddenly, a text buzzed against the table, breaking me from the haze. It was a message from Evelyn. "They're watching me. I think they know. We need to act fast." My heart dropped at the urgency woven into her words. As my gaze met Julian's, the silence spoke louder than any words could convey. We were in this together, and no hiding place would save us from what came next. The silence at the table felt deafening, and the world around me swirled into disarray as I registered Evelyn's message. My breath caught in my throat, threatening to fragment under the weight of impending chaos. I saw Julian's expression twist with worry, his mind racing through the possibilities of what might happen next. "What does she mean? They know?" he whispered, gripping my hand with a force that felt both desperate and reassuring. I could see the wheels of fear turning in his eyes, as the implications of Evelyn's situation dawned on us. "Do you think they've been watching her too?" Lena's gaze flickered from me to Julian, her composure unwavering but her brow furrowed. "If they know about her, it's likely they're tracking all of us. We need to be extra cautious." "But how can we be cautious?" My voice trembled, filled with a blend of anger and helplessness. "We need to act, to get that footage." "But how can we if they're already onto us?" Julian squeezed my hand tighter, grounding me amidst this turbulent emotional storm. "We need a plan," he said, his voice steadying as he spoke. "We can't just sit here waiting for them to make the next move." "I have a friend who can help us," Lena interjected, her dark eyes narrowing in contemplation. "A tech-savvy ally who specializes in counter-surveillance. If we're being watched, we need to know how to evade them." There was a fire in her voice, as if discussing the resources we had could lift the suffocating veil of fear. Reluctantly, hope seeped through my barriers. "What's his name?" "Alex," Lena replied, her voice quiet. "He's complicated. But he knows his stuff. Let me reach out to him." As Lena typed on her phone, I glanced back at Julian, who was now scanning the cafe, hyper-aware of the tension in the air. "We need to get out of here. We can't risk being seen together for too long," he said urgently. A rush of anxiety invaded my chest, overpowering the flickering hope. "And Evelyn? What if they try to silence her? If they've really noticed her, we need to go for her now." Before Julian could respond, another text pushed through the noise of my mind. It was from Evelyn again, sparking a sharp pang in my heart. "You need to make a choice. Either protect yourselves, or you risk it all to save me." A knot formed inside my stomach, twisting and tightening. "What choice?" "It shouldn't even be a choice." "It is, though," Julian said, his voice a mix of urgency and firm conviction. "No matter what we do, we need to stay safe. But we can't leave her behind either. We need to figure out a way to do both." The world outside felt more menacing than ever. I could feel the eyes of the cafe patrons on us, watching, waiting. My mind reeled, weighing the consequences of every decision as if they had the power to shape our fragile future. We might have allies, but we were still raw and exposed against the monstrous weight of the threat we faced. Then, without warning, the door swung open again, and a surge of cold air swept into our corner. I paled as I recognized the figure that stepped inside. It was Alex, Lena's friend. He looked around, his movements fluid yet cautious, like someone who knew how to navigate danger with ease. "Over here," Lena called out, gesturing him to our table, a flicker of relief lighting her otherwise serious demeanor. But as Alex approached, I found myself confronted with something unintended, a tightening knot of memories and emotions detached from the reality unraveling before me. I'd met him once before, during a late-night meeting at the support group. He had woven humor and tech knowledge into a blanket of comfort that felt so distant now. Just like Julian, I remembered the closeness of his laughter and the sigh of shared burdens. "Hey," he said, his expression shifting to concern as he took in our tense faces. "What's going on?" Lena straightened, her voice steadying as she filled him in on the situation. My heart raced as I watched Alex's reaction, the amusement draining from his eyes, replaced by a seriousness that matched our own. After explaining the precariousness of our hunt for the truth, Alex nodded, determination igniting in his gaze. "Then we need to move. I have some security measures we can set up, a way to mask our tracks. But we need to stay one step ahead." There was something captivating in his words, the way he spoke as if planning our next breath in a world veering into darkness. Yet, the tension still wrapped around us like a choking vine, pulling tighter with each heartbeat. But just as the thread of hope began weaving itself into our plans, a sudden commotion erupted outside. Shouts echoed, urgent and chaotic. I jumped, my heart racing as I leaned closer to the table. "Something's happening," Julian whispered, eyes wide with alarm. Lena quickly moved to observe the situation through the cafe's window. "It looks like a protest. Something's going down outside. Do you think it has to do with?" I started but was interrupted by a sharp gasp from Lena. "It's Evelyn. She's out there." Her voice was a mixture of shock and urgency, and I instinctively stood up, my instincts screaming to rush to her. In that instant, clarity struck me like a bolt of lightning. The choice Lena mentioned was unfolding before our eyes. We could stay hidden and focused on gathering evidence, or we could risk everything to draw Evelyn away from danger. Go. I shouted, throwing caution to the wind. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I moved toward the entrance, ignoring the voices of reason echoing in my mind. "There's no time for hesitation." I called back to Julian and Alex, refusing to let fear paralyze me any further. The storm outside beckoned like an unrelenting siren song, and I felt the surge of decisions converging, leading me into the heart of uncertainty. As I stepped outside, the world blurred into chaos around me, screaming voices, passion igniting the air, and yet, somewhere in the heart of that turmoil lurked a bone-deep sense of destiny. Evelyn needed us. But as I dashed into the fray, an unnerving thought struck me: what if the truth was more dangerous than we ever anticipated? Before I could formulate an answer, shouts erupted, and a cold shadow flitted just outside of my line of sight, sending an icy finger down my spine. The very ground of my resolve quaked beneath me. In that moment, the fragments of what lay ahead swirled ominously, hope entwined with dread. Would we be heroes or victims in this story, and was Evelyn just the beginning of unearthing something much larger? The thrum of uncertainty echoed louder as the storm of our fight together began to rage. The clash of voices grew louder as I stepped deeper into the swirling chaos. The bright colors of protest signs flashed before me, illuminated by the fading daylight, merging with the electric energy of anger and hope. It felt like a world on fire, but amongst the chaos, all that mattered was Evelyn. With each stride, I pushed forward through the throng, an unseen force pulling me closer. I could hear Julian and Alex's footsteps behind me, their determination palpable, but my mind was only focused on finding her. Panic welled up as I recalled her words. Her warning shed positioned herself as a target. What if she was caught? Finally, I caught a glimpse of her, standing defiantly in front of a barricade, her figure outlined against the violent backdrop of the gathering crowd. Her face was a mask of fierce resolve, turning toward the shouting voices demanding answers. I barely registered the collective urgency of the protest. All that registered was the desperate surge of adrenaline urging me onward. "Evelyn." My voice broke free, cutting through the cacophony of sound. Her head snapped in my direction, her eyes widening in surprise and something akin to relief. But before I could reach her, the first clash erupted. The police began to push back against the crowd, batons raised, and fear rippled through the bodies around us like electricity. I felt the ground shift beneath me, people shifting and jostling in a frenzied retreat. "Get out of there!" Julian shouted, straining to reach my side as he pushed against the tide of the crowd. My heart raced with frenzied pulses, sensing the danger around us climbing exponentially. Evelyn's expression hardened. "No. They need to hear us. This is our chance. Please." I shouted again, desperation clawing at my throat as I fought to maintain focus. She was right, it was a pivotal moment, one they would remember long after the police cleared the streets. But could she see what was coming? In an instant, the world exploded in chaos. A flash of blue lights pierced through the haze as a group of police surged forward, shouting commands to disperse. Gasps and cries ignited around us. I reached for Evelyn, my fingers brushing hers, but her determination held fast, unwilling to back down. "Evelyn. We can't stay here. It's too dangerous." I pleaded, my voice barely penetrating the unfolding mayhem. She turned to me, the fire in her eyes flickering for just a moment. "If we don't do something now, they will silence you, everyone. I can't let that happen." Before I could respond, a loud bang resounded. Water cannons erupted, spraying the crowd with icy force. The journalist in me was drawn to the chaos, the photographers I hungry to capture the story of fight and resilience, but one thought anchored me: Evelyn needed to be safe. Suddenly, from the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Lena, who had pushed her way to the perimeter of the protest. Her expression was grim as she waved at us. "We need to move. There's a back alley." "Quick!" I seized Evelyn's arm, twisting her to face the danger ahead. "We have to go now." But just as I turned, the pressure of the world around me threatened to pull us apart. A flurry of bodies surged forward while screams erupted, chaos swirled, and my grip on her hand slipped. The crowd surged around us like a tide, making it hard to see, but I caught a glimpse of Evelyn, her face resolute even amid the frenzy. The desperation pulsed through me as I fought against the current, reaching for her. But before I could grasp her hand again, I heard a low thud, a sickening sound that reverberated in my bones. I turned too late. Evelyn was down, arms raised as the crowd parted, revealing her sprawled on the pavement, stunned but unwavering. Then, shock coursed through me as a shadow fell over her, a police officer looming menacingly. "Evelyn!" I cried, pushing forward, but the crowd constricted like a vice. I felt Julian at my side, both of us moving as one desperate force against the tide. "That we have to get her out," he shouted, panic rising in his voice. In the chaotic clash of our world shattering, an unexpected hand reached out to grab mine. Alex had emerged beside us, eyes blazing with fierce determination. "This way!" he shouted over the noise, gesturing toward an alley just beyond the barricade. "Evelyn needs us," I blurted, my heart sinking. I caught one last glance at her, not surrendering, not backing down, defiance still etched upon her features. "Trust me." "Well, get her," Alex insisted, his voice unwavering against the backdrop of horror unfolding. It felt like betrayal, tearing away from her when she needed us the most. But I had to fight against the tide of despair that threatened to sweep us all under. We barreled toward the alley, the thunder of reality roaring in my ears. It wasn't the time to panic. My heart ached at the thought of leaving her behind, but the grim truth was echoing louder. The stakes were climbing, danger was unraveling. As we slipped into the shadows, I glanced back one last time. The image of her fierce spirit burned in my mind, a lighthouse in a sea of uncertainty. Would she hold her ground long enough for us to return? And then, as if in answer, the tunnel of chaos erupted into a deafening series of booms and screams. My heart broke at the distance growing between us, at the web of choices stretching infinitely as the truth they were all fighting for became even grimmer. "Let's go." "Well, regroup," Julian urged, but dread clung to me like a shroud. The revelations of our fight had intertwined with our choices, and as I followed Julian and Alex into the alley, a lingering thought gnawed at me: had we just exchanged Evelyn's safety for our own? Would the hidden truth in those videos expose the deep-rooted threats, or would it be the end of everything we fought for? As we fled into the unknown, the path ahead twisted into dark terrain, each step heavier with the weight of unanswered questions and a heart for which hope was teetering on the brink of despair. The alley wrapped around us like a silent witness, muffling the chaos behind while the stench of damp concrete and fear hung thick in the air. Each step felt weighted with uncertainty, my breath coming in short gasps as the adrenaline from the confrontation melded with dread. Julian and Alex were a few paces ahead, navigating the shadows with an urgency I could barely match. "Where's the next exit?" Alex asked, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting to see the tide of protesters and police surge through the narrow passage. His urgency mingled with concern, but I was lost in the echo of Evelyn's defiance. "Her face etched into my mind that I don't know," I replied, my tone clipped. "We need to go back for her. Are you insane?" Julian shot back, his eyes wide. "We're outnumbered, there's no way we can get to her in that mess. She'll be fine. We have to regroup and figure this out." It's what she would want. The tension in the air buzzed with the gravity of our decisions, and inside me, a storm brewed. Each word felt like a betrayal, a crushing reminder of my helplessness. I had always been the one pushing for justice, the one who believed in standing up for what was right, but now the reality of our choices loomed over me like a shroud. "Fine. But the moment we can, we're going back for her." I clenched my fists, the raw resolve fueling my fear. Emerging from the alley, we found ourselves on a quieter street, distant enough from the chaos of the protest. The orange glow of streetlights illuminated the worried faces of those hastily gathering in small groups, some checking phones for news, others fleeing in fear. It was surreal how quickly a world could shift between hope and despair, rage and apathy. "That we need to find a place to hide out, somewhere safe," Alex suggested. "I think I saw a cafe back a few blocks," Julian replied, scanning the area. "They might have a basement or something. We can go there and regroup." Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows. Lena stumbled toward us, her face pale and streaked with dirt, panic etched in her eyes. "I'm glad I found you. I saw the others retreat, but I couldn't find you guys." "Lena." I breathed, relief flooding through me. "Did you see Evelyn? Is she all right?" "No." Her voice trembled, and I noticed the tremor in her hands as she clasped them together. "When I was trying to reach you, I saw them take someone. I didn't see who. But they're arresting people." My heart sank, the weight of her words clawing at my chest. "What do you mean? You think they took Evelyn?" "I don't know. But she was right there, and then there were so many I lost sight of her." The reality sharpened painfully around me, the crushed hope weighing heavier than before. The crowd's screams echoed in my ears, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we continually fell further down a dark well of helplessness. "We need to find her." "Panic won't help," Julian cautioned gently, though his own weariness was evident. "We can try to gather some info first. Maybe we can find someone who knows what's happening." Lena nodded, swallowing hard. "I heard there are a few safe houses around here. They might have news. There's one a few blocks from here called the Haven. It's supposed to be a place where activists can regroup." "Lead the way," I urged, urgency fueling my steps as we moved in sync. As we hurried along the empty street, anxiety coiled in my gut like a snake, and every second felt like a lifetime. What if Evelyn was being held somewhere, alone and scared? The thought was unbearable, and I cursed myself for letting her stand her ground when it was so dangerous. When we arrived at the Haven, it was a modest building with an unassuming exterior. But inside, it buzzed with activity. People crowded around tables, whispering urgently, exchanging phones and information like lifelines. A woman approached us, her eyes darting nervously. "You look like you need help. Are you okay?" "We're looking for someone." "Evelyn Jones," I blurted out, my heart racing. "Have you seen her?" The woman's face changed, an instinctual recognition flickering across her features. "I'm afraid I saw her go down. The police were pretty aggressive. They're taking people to the precinct near the park." "No," I whispered, a coldness sinking in. "We have to do something." Julian's voice was a desperate plea, but fear choked my thoughts. There's a small team of activists planning a late-night movement to free those who've been arrested, she continued, her tone firm. If you want to help, you can fight back tonight. I hesitated, my mind torn between the action and the safety of our fledgling group. What if we fail? What if we don't get her out? Then we risk losing everything we've fought for, she replied, her conviction piercing through my uncertainty. The thrill of their plan ignited something in me, a flicker of hope amidst despair. Then we go. We go get her, I resolved, my voice steadier than I felt. As we joined the small gathering of determined souls, the apprehension twisted tightly in my chest, but something deeper stirred beneath, an unyielding belief that together, we could break through the shadows of this fight. Yet as we prepared to confront the impending danger, a gnawing fear resurfaced. What if this were just the beginning? What secrets would we uncover? And how far were we willing to go to rescue Evelyn? As the group rallied around us, a strange kinship formed in the air, fueling our purpose. I glanced around, recognizing the faces of my allies, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whispers of doubt were trailing in our wake. Something dark awaited us, and with that unsettling realization, I felt the undeniable weight of destiny tightening its grip. The night wrapped around us like a velvet shroud as we prepared for the daring rescue. The shadows danced under the flickering streetlights, enveloping our small group of activists as we moved with purpose toward the precinct. Each heartbeat throbbed in my ears, a muted drum signaling our collective resolve, yet beneath the surface, fear coiled tightly like a spring ready to snap. As we approached the precinct, the foreboding weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air. My thoughts spiraled between doubt and determination. Evelyn was out there, perhaps being questioned or worse, but the choice to act felt like a double-edged sword. I had fought to protect people like her, yet now I was standing on the precipice of something that could shatter us all. That I and the whispering darkness, Lena and Julian flanked me on either side, their presence both grounding and suffocating. Remember the plan, Lena murmured, her tone focused. We create a distraction, and while the guards are distracted, we find Evelyn, right, I replied, gripping the hem of the flyer in my pocket, me talisman of hope. It felt good against my fingers, a reminder of what had brought us this FAR.as we neared the precinct, a surge of adrenaline coursed through me. The air was thick with tension, and I caught sight of the police presence guarding the entrance, their uniforms dark against the backdrop of the illuminated building. My heart raced, a myriad of thoughts flooding my mind. What if we were caught? What if we failed? But just then, a cascade of shouts erupted from an alley across the street. It was a group of supporters, rallying against the inhumane treatment of those arrested earlier that night. The cacophony roared to life, echoing our plea for justice, and the guards instinctively turned toward the sound, curiosity piqued. Now. Go! Lena hissed, and I took a deep breath, sprinting toward the heavy double doors. Julian and Alex followed closely behind, and as we slipped inside, I steeled myself for what awaited us. Once in the foyer, I crossed my fingers and searched for signs of Evelyn. A chill ran through me as I scanned the stark white walls, the harsh fluorescent lights casting long shadows. There was a corridor leading further inside, and instinct tugged at my heart. This way. I urged, leading the charge. As we traversed the narrow hallway, I could hear muffled voices resonating from behind a thick, wooden door at the end. My gut churned with anxiety. What if Evelyn was in there, suffering while we dashed toward her? Wait, Julian whispered, halting suddenly. I turned back to him, urgency clear in my eyes. She's in there. I heard voice. It sounds like they're interrogating someone, he replied, the color draining from his face. We can't just barge in, we need a plan. But before I could muster a response, I caught sight of a figure through the glass pane on the door. Someone hunched on the floor, face down. Evelyn! I gasped, my voice breaking slightly as I rushed forward, pushing the door open. Inside the room, the atmosphere shifted, cold, sterile, devoid of compassion. The scene before us sent a jolt of horror through my veins. Evelyn lay subdued, hands cuffed behind her back, her face pale but resolute. Two officers hovered nearby, their demeanor menacing as they exchanged glances. Let her go. I yelled, adrenaline fueling my courage as I stepped into the room with Julian and Alex at my side. Surprise painted the officers' faces, but before they could react, Lena slipped in behind us. "We're here to help. You can't keep her here," she asserted, voice ringing with authority. One of the officers stepped forward, sneering. "You think you can just waltz in here and demand anything? This isn't a game." In that moment, the crisis escalated sharply. In the flurry of chaos, the other officer reached for his radio, and a realization dawned on me: calling for backup would make this situation exponentially worse. "Don't!" I shouted, panic seeping into my voice, as I was struck with the thought that Evelyn could endure no more of this. "Let her go, and well, walk out of here," Julian said steadfastly, protecting his bond with unyielding resolve. "You don't want to do this," but the officers hesitated, calculating their next moves. As their cries for reinforcement fell heavily in the air, a sudden commotion erupted outside. The distracting rally had surged again. It felt like a wave crashing against their defenses. "Now's our chance," Alex shouted, lunging toward Evelyn as he grabbed a set of keys from the officer's belt. In one swift motion, he unlocked her cuffs. "Evelyn, are you okay?" I asked breathlessly, reaching out. She nodded, though exhaustion lined her features. With adrenaline clawing at our senses, we prepared to flee, but the officers regained their composure, quickly moving to apprehend us. "Stop right there!" one shouted, raising his baton. "Run!" I screamed, adrenaline propelling me forward as I grabbed Evelyn's wrist, pulling her to her feet. We hurtled toward the door, the sound of angry calls and heavy footsteps behind us pushing us to run faster. In the heat of the moment, I couldn't tell who was leading and who was following. The only sound was the thundering rhythm of our hearts in unison. As we burst through the exit and into the mayhem of the protest outside, the culmination of our fears collided with a surge of hope. We stumbled into the press of bodies, their frenzied energy pushing us forward. "We need to get out of here," Julian shouted, scanning the crowd. "Follow me," Lena yelled, breaking away toward a nearby alley. As we dodged toward it, I couldn't help but glance back. The precinct loomed ominously behind us, its darkness a reminder of the chain of threats we had escaped. But they wouldn't stay silent for long. Once hidden from view, we took shelter in the alley, gasping for breath. My heart raced with disbelief and jubilation all at once. Looking around, I saw the relief flooded Evelyn's face. "You came for me," she murmured, gratitude glimmering in her eyes. "Of course we did," I replied, filled with a rush of emotion. "But we have to keep moving. They won't stop. They'll come after us for this, but we have to push forward," Julian urged, pausing to catch his breath. "There's a movement gaining momentum, and others are ready to fight back." Suddenly, a cacophony erupted behind us, and a flood of police officers stormed into the streets. "This way!" I cried instinctively, darting down a narrower alley that twisted sharply away from the thrum of ongoing chaos. As we navigated the shadows, hearts racing, minds racing, I couldn't shake the dread gnawing at my core. What we had just accomplished felt monumental, yet it left a residue of fear. With every turn we made, the unknown loomed larger. Would we have the strength to confront whatever lay ahead? Where to next? Alex asked urgently, pulling at my attention as we paused to catch our breaths. I looked at the determination etched on each of their faces, souls connected in purpose. "We find others. We gather those who've been silenced. We won't stop until we uncover the truth." As I spoke, a fire ignited within me, a flame fueled by compassion and courage in spades. This fight, this search for justice, stretched beyond just Evelyn. It had the potential to impact so many lives. But then came the horrifying notion that submerged beneath hope, the looming question of how far we were willing to go. Would our battles bring us closer to liberation, or would it unravel us at the seams? As the echoes of sirens faded into the distance, we could feel the world had shifted, but we were still amidst an uncertain tide. And just as I turned to pick up the pace, a message pinged on my phone, the identity of the sender sending chills down my spine. It was from that mysterious number again. Their message was stark: "You can't outrun what you've awakened. You know too much." In that moment, as chills cascaded down my spine, I realized our fight wasn't only against the walls that oppressed, we were up against a force weaving itself into the fabric of our very lives. With determination igniting my core, I glanced at my companions, our eyes locking in resolute determination. Whatever it takes, we face it together, even amidst the uncertainty. The bond that tied us surged stronger than ever, and as I stepped forward into the unknown, I felt a spark of hope glimmer. No longer were we merely individuals cloaked in fear, we were a movement. Each step echoed our defiance. Whatever shadows lay ahead, we would shine brighter. And in the heart of that chaotic night, beneath the absence of all we knew, we ignited a small but powerful truth. The flame of unity would light the way through the darkness. Together, we chose to stand up not just for ourselves, but for those still waiting to be awakened. Hope soared as our spirits intertwined, ready to confront every truth waiting to be unveiled. Sometimes it takes a journey through the shadows to emerge braver, bolder, and fiercely relentless. Together,